The hotel receptionist didn't smile when she handed me the key. Her fingers trembled as she slid it across the counter. She leaned forward and whispered so quietly I barely heard her, "Whatever you do, don't stay on the 7th floor tonight." My heart thumped once in confusion. My reservation was for room 712. My name is Rachel Mercer. I was traveling with my 11-year-old daughter, Chloe, trying to rebuild our lives after losing my younger brother 3 months ago. I thought we were checking in for a quiet night's rest. I was wrong. At 3:17 a.m., I learned exactly why she warned me and why room 712 should have never been opened. If you believe some warnings are not superstition but protection, subscribe now and comment where you are watching from. Your story might be the next one someone needs to hear. Chloe had fallen asleep in the back seat of the car hours earlier as we drove through the mountains. She had been quiet most of the trip, staring out the window, headphones in, lost in her own world. Ever since my brother Ethan passed away unexpectedly, she hadn't been the same. She didn't cry or talk about it. She just went silent, like part of her spirit had been locked away. I thought getting away for a few days would help us both heal, or at least breathe again. The hotel looked beautiful from the outside, tall, historic, and glowing with warm lights that made it look welcoming, almost comforting. Inside, the lobby was grand with a marble floor and chandeliers that hung low and sparkling. There were fresh flowers on every table and a soft scent of lavender in the air. Guests chatted happily near the fireplace. Everything looked normal, safe, and elegant. That changed when I stepped up to the front desk. The receptionist looked up, and her expression changed instantly when she saw my reservation. She typed something into the computer, frowned, then looked at me with unease. She double-checked the screen and then slowly reached into a drawer to retrieve the key card. "You're in room 7112, she said, then paused. The silence stretched. Finally, she leaned forward, eyes darting around to make sure no one else was listening. "Whatever you do not go to the 7th floor tonight." I blinked, unsure if she was serious. "But my room is on the 7th floor," I responded. Her hand shook as she pressed the key card into my palm. She lowered her voice even more. "You have a child with you," she said. "I am begging you. Stay on any other floor, but not the 7th. Before I could ask anything else, a man in a suit, possibly the manager, appeared near the desk. The receptionist straightened up immediately and looked away, as if she had said too much. She offered a forced smile and said out loud, "Enjoy your stay with us, Ms. Mercer." Chloe tugged my sleeve. Her eyes were wide. "Mom?" she whispered. "I don't want to go to that floor." I forced a calm smile, trying to convince both her and myself. "It's just an old hotel superstition," I said. But deep down, I felt the same sudden unease Chloe did. As we rolled our suitcase toward the elevator, I glanced back at the receptionist. She stood completely still, watching us with an expression that wasn't fear for herself, but fear for us. That was the moment I knew this was not a game, and I checked in anyway. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Chloe and I stepped inside with our suitcase. I pressed the button for the 7th floor. The instant my finger touched it, the lights inside the elevator flickered, not like a technical glitch, but as though something reacted to the choice I had just made. Chloe stepped closer to me, holding my arm. I forced a reassuring smile, but the receptionist's warning echoed in my mind. The elevator began to rise. It stopped on the 3rd floor, even though no one had pressed that button. The doors opened to an empty hallway. The lights flickered overhead as if reacting to an unseen presence. The doors slowly closed. We began ascending again. The elevator stopped once more on the 5th floor. Again, no one was there. This time, the lights inside the elevator dimmed so low that I could barely see the buttons. Chloe whispered, "Mom, the hotel doesn't want us going up there." Her voice trembled, not from childish fear, but from something deeper, instinct. I squeezed her hand, but remained silent. When the elevator reached the 7th floor, the doors opened before the chime even sounded. A rush of cold air swept in, colder than outside in the mountain night. The hallway was different from the others. The floors below us had been bright, modern, and well-maintained, but this floor looked untouched for decades. The carpet was worn and faded, with faint stains I couldn't identify. The wallpaper peeled in places, revealing older patterns beneath. The overhead lights flickered in a slow, unnatural rhythm, as though pulsing in time with a heartbeat that was not ours. The air smelled faintly like old smoke and something sweet, like flowers long dead. Every door on the floor was closed except ours, room 7112, which stood slightly ajar, as if someone had already been inside waiting for us. Chloe hesitated. "Mom, I don't want to go in there," she said. Her voice was not whiny or dramatic. It was calm and direct, almost too mature. I placed my hand gently on her back and guided her forward. "We will be fine," I said, even though my own voice sounded distant to my ears. As soon as we stepped into the room, the temperature dropped dramatically. It felt like we had walked into a refrigerator. I checked the thermostat. It was set to 72 degrees. Still, I could see my breath in the air. The room itself looked completely ordinary. 2 queen beds, a desk, a TV mounted on the wall, a window with heavy curtains drawn shut. Nothing was out of place, and yet everything felt wrong. Chloe set her backpack on the bed and sat down while I closed the door and engaged the lock. The moment the latch clicked, a distant sound echoed through the hallway. 3 slow knocks on what sounded like wood. Chloe looked up sharply. "Was that our door?" I shook my head. The knocks came again, this time closer. 3 knocks. A pause, then faint whispering, a woman's voice. I moved toward the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty. Then the whisper came again, only this time it wasn't outside the door. It came from inside the room. The hair on the back of my neck lifted. Chloe clutched my arm, her eyes wide. "Mom," she whispered, "someone is in here with us." Before I could respond, the television turned on by itself, flickering to static. The room phone began ringing shrill and loud. I picked up the receiver with shaking hands. There was no dial tone, no voice, only the same static from the TV. Then through the static, I heard a faint, broken voice say my name, "Rachel," drawn out slowly as if the speaker had not spoken in years. I dropped the phone. The lights flickered again. Chloe backed up until she was pressed against the wall. Then the whispering returned, louder now, not from any direction but coming from all around us. It sounded like multiple voices overlapping, hundreds of conversations happening in an endless loop. And beneath them all, one clear sentence formed, spoken in a voice that chilled me to my core. "You never should have come back." I had never been here before, at least that's what I believed. But in that moment, I realized this place knew me, and it had been waiting. I stood frozen, every instinct in my body shouting at me to run, but something deeper, something I couldn't understand, held me in place, like the room itself would not allow me to leave without acknowledging its presence. Chloe was pressed against the wall, clutching her backpack to her chest as if it could shield her. The television static grew louder, but there were no images, only the faint outline of a face flickering in and out of the screen, as if someone was trying to emerge from behind the glass. I grabbed the remote and pressed the power button, but nothing happened. The screen remained on, the static hissing in the room like a warning. Then, without warning, the screen went completely black. A new image appeared. Not a channel, not a movie, just a grainy security camera feed showing the hallway outside our room. My heart pounded as I watched the monitor. The hallway was empty. Then, slowly, a figure appeared at the far end. It looked like a woman, hair dripping wet, clothes clinging to her as if she had come from a storm, but her movements were unnaturally slow, like she was wading through water. She stopped in front of a door, room 710, and pressed her ear to it, as if listening. Chloe whispered, "Mom, please make it stop." Her voice snapped me out of my trance. I moved toward the television, reaching to pull the plug, but before I could, a loud knock echoed through the room. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, except this time, it came from inside the closet. Chloe screamed and ran into my arms as I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and held it like a weapon. The knocking came again. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Every nerve in my body felt like it was on fire, telling me not to open that door, but I knew if I didn't face whatever was in this room, it would not go away. I set the lamp down and slowly walked toward the closet. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the air had turned to water. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I pulled the door open. Inside, it was pitch dark. I fumbled for the light switch and flicked it on. The closet was empty, completely empty. But on the floor, in the center of the small space, there was a single item, an old-fashioned room key made of tarnished brass with the number 712 engraved into it. My breath caught. That key did not belong to this era. It looked decades old, heavy, and ice-cold to the touch when I picked it up. As soon as I lifted it, the television turned off, the room went silent, and the temperature rose slightly, like whatever had been here was momentarily satisfied. Chloe looked at me, her eyes red from tears. "Mom," she said quietly, "we aren't the first ones in this room." The words hit me with the force of truth. I looked at the antique key in my hand and suddenly remembered the receptionist's eyes, full of fear, full of guilt. She hadn't just been warning me, she had been apologizing in advance. I made a decision in that moment. We were not going to stay in that room 1 minute longer. I grabbed my phone, my bag, and Chloe's hand. "We're leaving," I said, my voice firm, my heart racing. We hurried to the door, but when I reached for the lock, my hand froze. The deadbolt was already unlocked. I knew I had locked it when we came in. Someone, or something, had unlocked it from the inside. A chill ran down my spine, not from supernatural fear, but from a realization that chilled me even deeper. Whatever was in this room wasn't trying to hurt us. It was letting us leave, and that meant it wasn't done with us yet. As I stepped into the hallway, pulling Chloe close, the antique key still in my hand, something deep inside me whispered that whatever waited on this floor wasn't hunting us randomly. It knew exactly who I was, and for the first time, I began to wonder, not if I had been here before, but if someone I loved had never truly left. The hallway outside our room stretched endlessly in both directions, silent and dim, as if time itself had paused the moment we stepped out. Chloe held tightly to my hand, her breathing quick and shallow. The antique key felt heavy in my palm, almost warm now, as if it had a pulse. I checked the elevator panel. It was unlit, the screen dark. The elevator was no longer operating. Every instinct told me to find the stairs, so I hurried down the hallway, counting door numbers, 714, 716, 718, but I quickly realized something was wrong. The numbers were increasing, not decreasing. We were walking away from the center of the building. I turned around, but when I did, the hallway behind us was not the same one we had just walked down. The carpet was darker, the wallpaper peeled more severely, and the lights above flickered with a reddish hue. It was like we had crossed into a different part of the hotel, a part that no longer existed in the real world. Chloe's grip tightened. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking, "I don't think this is a normal floor." I tried to reassure her, but inside, terror was blooming like ice spreading through my veins. We reached a fire escape door, and I pushed it open, expecting a stairwell, but instead, we stepped into what looked like an old lounge. Dusty chairs were overturned. An ancient piano sat in the corner with broken keys, and portraits lined the walls. Portraits of guests and staff from decades ago. One portrait in particular caught my eye. It was my brother Ethan, young, smiling, standing with a group of guests dressed in 1950s clothing. My breath caught in my chest so violently I thought I might faint. Chloe looked up at the painting, then at me. "Mom," she whispered, "is that Uncle Ethan?" My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear my own voice when I said, "It can't be." Ethan was born in 1997. The date under the portrait read 1954, but the face, it was him. Every feature, every detail. My mind raced through impossible explanations. Maybe this was someone who resembled him. Maybe my grief was projecting his image. But even as I tried to rationalize it, the antique key in my hand began to burn hotter, demanding to be used. Suddenly, a soft piano note played. Chloe and I both turned to see the piano lid lift itself. A single key pressed down, then another. The notes formed a melody, a lullaby my mother used to sing to Ethan and me when we were children. I remembered these notes. They weren't random. They were calling us. Drawn forward by something I couldn't resist, I approached the piano. The air grew colder with each step, the room darkening. As I touched the edge of the piano, the music stopped. Silence. Then I heard it. My brother's voice, as clear as if he were standing right behind me. Rachel. I turned. He stood at the far end of the room, wearing the same clothes he wore the night he died. His eyes were filled not with fear, but with sorrow. Chloe ran toward him, but I pulled her back. "That's not him," I said, my voice shaking. And yet, part of me wanted to believe. Ethan spoke again. "You weren't supposed to come here." Tears filled my eyes. "Then why did you lead me?" He lifted his hand and pointed to the antique key. "Because you must remember the truth. You didn't just lose me. You left me." The words hit me like a blow. Memories I had buried deep began to surface. Memories of Ethan's final night, of him calling me, asking me to come over, saying he was scared and hearing voices. I had ignored the call. I told myself I was too tired. I had told him to sleep it off. He died in his sleep that night from cardiac arrest. Guilt I had buried came crashing over me. I sank to my knees, sobbing. I didn't know you needed me." Ethan's face twisted in grief. "I didn't bring you here to blame you. The hotel feeds on guilt. It used me because it knew you would follow. But if you stay, it will take you too. And Chloe." The walls began to groan, the floor trembling. Portraits rattled. A deep rumble echoed around us, like something awakening beneath the hotel. Ethan shouted, "Use the key! Free us all!" The key in my hand began to glow, light seeping through my fingers. The floor split beneath the piano, a dark void opening like a mouth. Shadowy figures clawed their way up, reaching for us. Chloe screamed. Ethan's voice grew urgent. "Unlock the door, Rachel. Let go of me so I can go where you cannot follow." With shaking hands, I lifted the key and turned. Behind us, an old door stood where none had been before. I placed the key in the lock. The moment it turned, a blast of warm air burst through the room, scattering the shadows. The void sealed shut. Ethan smiled, tears in his eyes. "Goodbye, Rach." Then he vanished into the light. The 7th floor let us go. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the floor of the 7th floor hallway, with Chloe kneeling beside me, tears streaming down her face as she clutched my hand, whispering, "Mom, please wake up." The hallway no longer looked aged or decayed. The lights were bright, the carpet clean, the air warm. The antique key lay on my chest, no longer glowing but tarnished and cold again, as if it had finally finished its work. I sat up slowly, dizzy but clear in my mind, every part of me aware that something had ended the moment that door opened. Chloe threw her arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder. "He's gone, Mom. I saw him. Uncle Ethan." He smiled. Her words broke something inside me, not in pain, but in release. For the first time since my brother died, I did not feel that crushing weight of guilt. It wasn't that the pain disappeared, it transformed. It became love instead of regret. As I stood, I helped Chloe to her feet and walked toward the elevator. This time, when I pressed the button, it lit up smoothly. No flicker, no hesitation. The elevator arrived instantly. As the doors opened, I glanced back down the hallway. A warm light glowed near room 712, and for a brief moment, I saw a silhouette leaning against the wall, tall, familiar. My brother. He lifted his hand in a slow wave, then turned and walked down the hall until he faded completely from view. Not trapped, not haunting, at peace. When the elevator doors closed, I felt my breath steady. The ride down was silent, calm. As we reached the lobby, I found the receptionist, Sandra, waiting for us with tears in her eyes and her hands clasped over her heart. She looked at the key, then at me with deep understanding. "He finally left, didn't he?" she said. She didn't have to explain who she meant. I nodded, unable to speak. Chloe squeezed my hand and gave a small smile to the receptionist. "Thank you for warning my mom," she said, her voice soft but strong. The receptionist wiped her tears. "Your brother helped me once too. When I was a child, I stayed on that floor. I never forgot his face. I knew he was trying to protect you." Her words stunned me. My brother had been connected to this place long before his death, not as a victim, but as a protector. As we left the lobby, the morning sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky gold and pink. The air felt fresh, almost new, as though the world had been reset. I took a long breath and felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Chloe held my hand as we walked to the car. She looked at me and said, "Mom, are we starting over now?" I smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Not over," I said. "We're starting forward." We got into the car and pulled away from the hotel. In the rearview mirror, I saw the building standing tall and elegant, no sign of darkness, no shadow in the windows. Just a hotel ready for another day. The 7th floor was quiet now, no longer calling, no longer waiting. As the hotel disappeared from view, I thought about my brother. He didn't appear to haunt me. He appeared to remind me that love doesn't end in death, and guilt doesn't honor the dead. Living does. I turned to Chloe. "We're going to be okay," I told her. This time I knew it was true. That night did not break me. It gave me back my life. If this story gave you chills or touched your heart, make sure to subscribe and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps bring powerful stories like this to light, and your voice could help someone else let go of their own 7th floor.